Welcome to the Millionaire Journey Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to guide and empower you on your journey towards financial independence. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Today, my guest is Nick Kosko with CreateTailwind. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks a bunch for having me, Glenn. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show.
Yeah, so previously we've had Jim Oliver on the show, and he's awesome to listen to. And you and Jim have I guess banter back and forth on your on the CreateTailwind podcast, which I love.
Thank you.
And really wanted to hear your story. So if you could just start how you got into where you're at today.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks. And I always refer to Jim as the Michael Jordan of our business, man. I'm super blessed to have Mike on my speed dial. It always embarrasses him when I say that, so I get that out there. But yeah, man. I'm born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. All I ever wanted to go do was fly big airplanes. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. That didn't work out. And I wanted to go fly these big airplanes and, set forth down this road. I came from a middle-class family. We didn't want for much. We didn't have anything lavish. My dad was a white-collar factory worker, working as an engineer, and worked for Ford for 35 years. And, kind of thought, hey, that's the American dream. And that's what I set out to do. By the time I was 30, I had my dream job and I was flying a 747 around the world. I really thought my stuff didn't stink. I had it made. I kind of levitated around town. I married my dream woman the same year I got that job in 2007 and was making good money, low six figures. You work half the month and you got the nicest yard in the neighborhood and your neighbor's like, hey, do you have a job? And it was great. And then 08, 09 happened. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners and yourself, Glenn, remember the bottom dropping out. This little office in London by AIG just about took down the global economy. I think there was like 12 people working in that office, like no joke. And the package delivery business took a hit. And in 2009, my flying employer told me I was going to be laid off. And it happened to be the week after my wife told me she was pregnant with our first kid. And to be honest with you, man, you talk about feeling like a thunderbolt go through you. My wife worked as a nurse, making a little bit of money, but I was a breadwinner. We had a nice house, too dumb of a mortgage, too dumb of a couple car payments, and we set out, and I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. And there was a couple blessings. One was that it took 18 months before they actually laid us off. So I had this runway, Glenn. And I figured it out, started a little construction company. We, that grew into a full-fledged renovation company that took on a life of its own. And, but here's what I learned. I learned in that moment as I was getting laid off that I was just a well-paid slave. And dude, I'm just telling you, man, once you see something like that, once you have that realization, and I'm sure plenty of your listeners have felt this way too, like you had these golden handcuffs and then you realize, oh crud, I've got handcuffs on, screw that. And, I was only out of my flying job for 21 months. We had a couple kids in there and just kept growing our family and just kept chugging along. But man, I tell you what, my curiosity about money was planted into fertile soil. And I went to work trying to learn about the real truth about money. What my parents had taught me was not wrong, right? It just wasn't what was going to work out for me. Go get a good job, work for somebody else for 30, 40 years. And then when you quote unquote retire, which that word's not in the Bible, I've come to learn, you're going to be removed from service. And then some money babysitter is going to tell you how much money you get to take. And then we're going to hope that you don't run out of money by the time you die. Hope's not a strategy. And so I was like, why are there people like Jim Oliver, who I didn't know? Why do they just have no care in the world about money? Right? Like, how does that guy own these shopping plazas? How does this guy own this trucking company? The real estate portfolios around me, like how is that going on? And honestly, Glenn, I was like a curious kid. I just was asking questions. My wife and I did Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace when I was getting laid off. And I'll be honest with you, his first couple steps I think are good. Live within your means, have an emergency thing. But he starts talking about earning 8 to 10% your good growth stock mutual fund. I just thought, man, your math is not right. I'm not smart enough to figure it out on my own, but I'm pretty sure your math is not right. Here he was telling me to load up my 401k, but he's making all his money in real estate and business. Yes. It's kind of hypocritical to me. And not that it's not well-intentioned, but whatever. I just knew something was off. So I started interviewing financial advisors. Okay. So I got my job back. My wife, I think, was pregnant with our third kid. We've got 4 now. And I'm interviewing these financial advisors, Glenn, and I don't know if you've ever sat in these meetings before, but it's a great sales pitch, right? Let me show you all these fancy
Always.
charts, right? Like, hey, you're gonna, your flying employer is gonna put 12% in. You don't even have to put 12% in, but if you max out this bucket and that bucket, and by the time you're 60, Nick, you're gonna have it made. You're gonna have like I remember these numbers, and you're gonna have like 4 million in there, and you're gonna get to take this out, and you're gonna get to go do whatever you want. And I just thought to myself, man, I'm pretty sure this is all for your benefit, not mine. It sounds good. It's a great pitch.
Yeah.
And these guys, Glenn, I'm sure some of your listeners feel the same way. They're good dudes. And I've got great friends that are financial advisors. I play golf with some phenomenal dudes. It's not about the guy. Okay.
Yeah.
It's about the system that I've come to learn.
The system, 100%.
So I interviewed, there was like 6 or 7 guys here in Louisville that just hound all of the local pilots. And I was lamenting about this. So we take off on this flight. It's like 4 a.m. I'm flying with a guy. And I say something obtuse about money and my experience with interviewing these financial advisors. And this guy turns to me and goes, well, have you ever heard of infinite banking? And I was like, I don't know what the hell you just said. And so here's the funny thing. So this guy's name's Mike. And Mike was a new client of a guy who's now one of my best friends, okay, in this space. Because our community of Nelson Nash authorized practitioners is really small, okay?
Yep.
And Mike couldn't answer any of my questions worth a darn, okay? I was coming at it from like a Dave Ramsey perspective and like browbeating him about this insurance policy that he's talking about. And Mike's just like trying to sell me on this insurance contract, but he couldn't explain to me the problem. And he kept saying to me, Glenn, he goes, Nick, you just got to read the book. You just got to read the book. But we're cruising along, Glenn, at 35,000 feet at 4 a.m. and trying to stay awake all the way from Louisville to Denver. And I'm trying to get to the end of the internet about this thing he just brought up, right? So it was kind of funny. We stayed in touch over the last 11 years since this flight. And he just kept saying, Nick, you just got to read the book. And so I get my hands on this book, and I'll never forget, I was on a layover sitting in a Denny's in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And I open up Nelson's book called Becoming Your Own Banker. And I get 25 pages into this brilliant 92-page book. And I went, son of a gun, this is what I've been looking for. And what I came to learn about that book and why it resonated with me so much was that it's just about the truth about money. It's not your inconvenient truth or my inconvenient truth. It's about the truth. And Nelson just lays it out. And I was so blessed to spend time with Nelson. He came to my home here in Louisville. And Nelson, he didn't care how you felt about it. He just said, hey, this is the truth about money. And what I learned was that the most powerful business in the world is banking. And I learned that what I was missing was understanding the name of the game, which is control. So I read this book, Glenn, and I'm like, anybody can see you and we don't have a big shaggy head of hair, right? That's why we got facial hair to make up for it.
Yeah,
but, I had a hair on fire problem right then. I was like, how do I start this thing? And so I get online, and no one in the state of Kentucky is certified to teach this. Now, keep in mind, just a few years prior, I realized I was a well-paid slave, and I'm kind of like, I'm curious about an off-ramp out of flying, okay? And so I track down Nelson, I get him on the phone. I'm like, hey, Nelson, nobody in the state of Kentucky is certified to do this. I think that I'd like to be your guy. And he goes, and I'm not even going to try to do his thick Alabama drawl, but he was just the kindest man ever. He loved me. He overloved me because Nelson was a pilot too. And so we had this connection, and he just kind of, like I say, he overliked me pretty quickly. He's like, Nick, you got to do this interview with the board. And one of the guys on his board, Glenn, speaks before Congress on economic matters. And I'm like, I'm just a knuckle dragger pilot, man. You pull back on the yoke, you go up, you keep pulling back, you go down. That's how simple it is to fly an airplane. And you're going to have me interview with some, PhD economist. Like, okay, I'll buckle up, I'll get in the seat, and do it. So I get approved. I go through his thing, and Glenn, I asked maybe one of the only intelligent questions I've ever asked. I was like, hey, Nelson, will you please assign me a mentor? I heard you have a mentor program. And he's like, Nick, you don't need a mentor. You nailed it. I'm like, Nelson, I've completely fooled you. I don't know anything. I don't know how to speak this. And so he does me a solid. He reaches out to this guy named Jim Oliver, who, like you said, you've had on your show before. And as Jim would tell it, Nelson's like, hey, there's this guy in Kentucky. He really needs, he doesn't need your help, but he really thinks he does. We just call him and assuage his fears. And Glenn, man, I'm just telling you, I knew better than to try to do this on my own. I knew that I had no idea how to effectively communicate what it looked like to take control, to interpret Nelson's book, because it's so deep. It's 92 pages, but it's rife with nuance. And I can tell you within a couple square feet of where I was standing 2 houses ago when Jim called me, we played a little phone tag. We get on the phone and he asked me these 3 really important questions. And I knew as he like unpacked all this in a brief conversation, I don't know if we talked 10 minutes, 15 minutes, Jim can breathe through his eyelids talking. It's pretty impressive. So I'm sure he's just ripping through whatever, he's a busy guy. And I just remember being captivated by his words about how he was flipping the whole money conversation up on its end. And he made me an offer. He made me a really kind offer. He's like, hey, I'll help you work with a few people. And we did that. And one thing led to another. And I said, Jim, I think I'd like to join your firm. He's like, well, I'm not hiring anybody. And I was like, well, listen, I don't want to be a one-man band. I'm smart enough to know that I shouldn't do that. And I said, I'd like to come to South Dakota and meet you. Could you tell me a hotel? He's like, Nick, you're not staying in a hotel. Come stay at my house. And he and his wife welcomed me with open arms. And Jim and I now, we've got our own podcast, Breakaway Wealth. I think we're in our 7th year of that. We have our own app, educational app. We're absolutely passionate about teaching the truth about money the way Nelson taught it. Nelson graduated from this world, I think 5 years ago. Jim and I own multiple businesses together, multiple real estate ventures. I joke sometimes, Glenn, that my kids like him more than they like me. We talk morning, noon, and night often, most days. And, our relationship transcends the business, but it's really about going out and walking the walk about what Nelson left us. That was a lot. Sorry.
Yeah. It's so just for our listeners, I would say that how would you, so I've heard this question a lot and I am like somewhat obsessed with the information and I love it.
Yeah.
I personally had $300,000 in my 401k, wanted to leave my job.
Yeah.
And the only way I could do it is to liquidate. I sold a house, rental property, and I had $100,000 in my bank account, and it kind of gave me the power to leave.
Yeah.
And then what ended up happening is over time, I realized that $300,000 is way more useful outside of my 401k. And it was also holding me back from doing the things that I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's my drive to, but I love the infinite banking concept. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions of what I maybe don't agree with, or like, kind of like I hear a lot of guys talk about it that are, that sell life insurance that pitch the IBC. So we're going to go over those things. So
please.
First one is they always say, if you don't know the problem, you don't know the solution, or you can't get the solution. So what is the problem?
The problem is that you finance everything you buy. And Nelson's book just lays out that problem. And I'll just briefly expand the
example. Yeah.
Yeah. You finance everything that you buy. You either pay interest to other people. Okay. So most people can see that in like an amortization table, most commonly with like their home. Okay. And I'll give you this quick, brief example. A $300,000 mortgage at 5% for 30 years, the payment $1,610 a month. Okay. All right. Over the life of that loan, if you take $1,610 and change times 360, it works out to $579,000. All right. That's 48 cents of every dollar went to someone else in interest. So Glenn, you earn $1 and you have to pay me almost half of it. Do you care what the rate is, or that you just had to pay me half?
I do care what the rate is what I would say.
But you have to pay me.
Okay. So here's my argument. Let's go against that. Okay.
Yeah,
so if somebody wants, it is the rate of payback is what I would say. That is the risk. So say, if somebody gave me a 0% loan on instead of a house, because I think that the 30-year financing generally is pretty good financing.
Sure.
Overall, like the payback period is it's like 30 years.
Awesome.
Like nobody will.
Yeah.
Very few people experience the 30-year mark of that loan. It's either they pay it off early or they,
I love that.
They have to hold the loan for 30 years, or refinance,
Yeah.
to refinance it most likely. But what I would say is more like with a car. If it was a 0% finance car, I think there's a velocity of the capital.
Ooh.
Like we'll just say my own car payments right now. I have loans on them right now, which there's a long story to it, but I would say that the car loans that I have are $30,000. We'll just say $30,000, and the monthly payment is around $600 a month.
Okay.
I think the interest rate's 8%, but it doesn't matter what the interest rate is. It matters about that I have $30,000 out, and it's sucking up my $600 cash flow. So that's more of what I would look at, other than the actual how much interest I'm paying somebody, because I would like to see how much I'm making over that payment is really what the plan is. That's how I would look at it. But I know that some people would say, oh, if it's $0, it's free money. And I don't see that as free money. I see it as sucking up an investment that would have to make 24% to pay for that car payment. That's what I look at.
So I love what you just said. The 0% interest car loan, is there really such thing as free money? Do you know how do you know how the dealership makes money in the 0% deal?
Overpaying for a car.
That's right. So I'll give you an example.
That's what I would say.
I captured this out of the newspaper here probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I even called the dealership. So it was a Ford dealership, and they had a truck, and it was I think it was like $35,000. Okay, and after all these discounts, blah 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 blah, you could get it for $27,000, and then it had the most powerful 2 words in marketing. It said or 0% financing for 72 months. So I was like, holy cow, here it is. It's right out in the open. So I call the dealership, and this sweet girl answers the phone. We'll call her Mandy. I say, hey, Mandy, I see your ad in the paper today. I love this truck. I just want to, before I drive down there, I wanted to know if I come in and I pay cash for the car with all the discounts, it's $27,000. But if I want your 0% financing, it's $35,000. She's like, hold on. So she puts me on hold. She comes back excitedly because she got the answer, right? She's like, yeah, that's right. I was like, well, that doesn't sound like 0% financing to me. That sounds like I'm going to pay $8,000 in interest all up front in the cost of the car. And there was like crickets on the other end of the phone. And she goes, oh. And so all this does, it just says, hey, listen, it's the volume of interest in every payment that matters, not the rate. Now, listen, you and your listeners are sophisticated enough to know, hey, I can go make Delta, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just understanding the game of what's going on. It doesn't mean we don't take a 30-year mortgage, but what it might say is we don't refinance that. It might be because the bank doesn't want you having that 30-year mortgage 30 years from now, 359 payments from now, right? So back to the problem. We either pay interest to other people, or when we pay cash, we give up the ability to earn interest only forever. Nelson's book, Infinite Banking, is just about solving that problem. So I would ask you, Glenn, in your life, when are you going to stop spending money?
Never.
The day you die, right? As Nelson would say, the day we graduate. Okay, so you have this opportunity. If you're going to finance everything that you buy, so you're going to spend money for the next 70 years with technology. Okay, you probably live that long. All right, 60, 70 years. So you have this huge opportunity before you to solve this need for finance. So what's greater in your life, your need for death benefit or your need for finance?
Finance.
Right, all day long, right? And if you have this big problem, why isn't that every financial advisor that you sit down with is not saying, hey, you've got this huge need for finance in your life. Let me help you solve that problem. Well, why don't they do that? Well, they don't get paid to do that. The system is about control. So Glenn, how much money do they want of yours?
All of it.
How long do they want it?
As long as they possibly can have it.
And how much of it do they want to pay back to you?
As little as possible.
As little as you'll tolerate, right? Now, the next question is, who's they?
I guess we'll call Wall Street.
Yeah, the banks, Wall Street, and the government. They understand how to get control of your money in an uncommon way and use the most powerful word possibly in the English language, which is leverage.
Hey guys, if you want to learn more about our deals we're investing in, go to our website and sign up for our free ebook, 10 Reasons Mobile Home Parks Outperform Other Real Estate Investments. We won't spam you. We'll just keep you updated on the podcast and the deals we're working on. Now, back to the show. All right, so let me go into what I feel is missed. I feel a lot through insurance, and the thing that kind of got me to change my way of thinking about IBC.
Yeah.
So really, all of that is the infinite banking concept is really the problem. The problem I have with the whole thing of like, you become your own banker. It is 100. I would say you become your own cash account.
Yeah.
That's what you're creating.
That's right.
But there's a benefit. The benefit that everybody, and it's almost like this is the part where a lot of, I guess, influencers, I don't think it's Nick Kosko or anybody like that, but I would say the influencers say, oh, it's not about that. But it is 100% about that. So there's a few things that happen with infinite banking that cover you on things, and it's guaranteed. So we have life insurance. So the problem with term insurance is that it's almost guaranteed not to happen. 1% chance that it happens, that you die and you give somebody, and you're betting on yourself not dying and the insurance company doesn't want you to die.
Yeah,
And as you
you're
go ahead.
betting. Are you betting with or against the insurance company when you buy term?
I think I forgot how it goes, but I would say that you're I guess you're betting that you die early,
Yep.
or you're covering yourself to die early.
Yeah,
Which nobody wants you to die. Like
Yeah.
when you do whole life, there's things in place that actually want you to stay alive longer, because the insurance doesn't want you to die, because then they have to make the payout.
Yeah, term
So-
insurance, you're betting against the insurance company, and they have all the data. They have all the
Yep.
actuarial data. It's not that when you die, they refuse to pay. It's that they're insuring you during term when you're least likely to die. So Glenn, think about this. What are your odds of dying before age 65?
Hopefully low.
Yeah,
Low.
it's truly less than 1%.
Yeah.
Glenn, what's your odds of dying after age 65?
Very high.
100%, right?
Yeah.
But most people don't have term insurance, roughly, give or take a few years.
Past that.
Past age
They stop
65.
at 65. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so the thing that actually, after I actually committed to it, I realized is way more valuable than the whole, because as you go into it, and I've talked to very smart people, guys with actuaries that are very smart, guys, CFOs of companies, guys that are making millions of dollars a year. I think the biggest thing is your insurance cost is actually cheaper with IBC, from my experience of looking at it. And you can look at it yourself. I would totally recommend you go in and dig, because it is a big commitment. But I think the things that it isn't really talked about at all, they have different types of riders, as long as it's structured correctly.
That's right.
Which is, it's got disability insurance. I paid disability insurance every year before this.
Right.
It's got disability insurance. It's got terminal illness insurance. So if something does happen, that you need to have some type of payment
Emergency.
Because exactly, you could talk about it more. But then also they have long-term care insurance also on top of that.
Yep.
So really, when we talk about, we'll just say the premium that you pay in the first year, the total for in my scenario, I would say is $60,000.
Yep.
Which is not everybody's scenario. What I look at is I save about $5,000 a month towards investments. Outside of my own earned income. So I say that's $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
The first year, it's about $37,000 cash value is what it turns into being. So we'll just say the difference of that is what, $23,000?
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
So $23,000 for this insurance. And it's the only time I'll have to pay it.
That's right.
The next year might have to be a little bit, maybe $5,000. So we'll say it's a $28,000 in insurance that I pay up ahead of time, but I never have to pay it again, because now we have a savings account that has this benefit that constantly grows my legacy over time. And that's really, and that the cash value that's in there is able to be borrowed back to put towards cash flowing investments, is what I would end up doing with it. You can choose whatever you want. You can buy cars with it. You can do whatever you want. The insurance company doesn't require any documentation.
Nope.
But I think that's the benefit that's what I think is totally overlooked. And everybody is like, why would I put $60,000 to only have $37,000? You're like, no, you're paying insurance for the rest of your life in the first year, and you never have to pay for it again, the first and second year.
Yeah, if you think about it like this, if you and I went and bought a McDonald's, okay? If I bought we bought this McDonald's, let's just say it was $1 million, keep the math simple. Are we going to be able to take out $1 million in the first year of free cash flow? Hell no.
No.
Right? If we get to take 60% out of that, if we get 600,000, we would be jumping up and down excited about it. We would say, where do I sign for that? And I'll go borrow the $1 million. I almost don't care what it costs me. Right?
Yeah.
And people lose sight. They think that IBC is an investment, that it's some trick. It's not. You're building a cash flow system. Nelson talked about it in his one of his other books called Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. And he just said, hey, your money's going to reside somewhere. And guess what? Ownership has privileges. So I'm venturing to say, Glenn, that you and the bulk of your audience, you own your home, right? I know you might have a mortgage on it, but do you own or rent?
I actually rent.
Okay, That's okay. That's fair. This still works, right?
It would cost a lot of money to own it, and it's way cheaper to rent.
Yeah, and I totally understand that, and that is how some markets are, and it's kind of an interesting paradigm how that has changed. What we call it the last decade, 15 years. Like there's this is going to ebb and flow, and it'll be interesting to see what happens the next couple decades with this, because I think there is some market correction happening as a result of that. But we can all agree that like you don't have autonomy what you get to do in that home, right? You don't get to
Correct.
renovate the kitchen. Your landlord might be okay with you painting a wall a different color, but there's limits to what you can do. And as a result, you get limited privilege, right?
Yeah.
There is kind of a cap on what you are allowed to do with that home, right? But if I own my home, hey, if I want to rip out the landscaping and redo it, yeah, I can do that. If I want to finish my basement, I can finish the basement. Whatever it might be, the point being ownership has privileges. Okay. So if you put all your money in the commercial bank, the bank loves you, right? But they don't pay you
No.
anything substantial. You're not getting shares of the profits. Like they give you like the pittance, right? So you're
And
just renting.
they don't love you. They
No,
don't love you at all.
yeah, no, they don't show you any
I don't
love.
trust them. No, the banks
Yeah,
do not love you.
yeah, they love you for letting them use for letting
Yeah.
you they get to use your money and they love you for that
Yeah.
piece, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
but that's renting, right? That's renting my storage vehicle for my money. And when we understand the privileges of these life insurance companies and these contracts, it's akin to ownership has privileges. I get total use of control, and no one gets to tell me what I get to do with that money. It is a unique creature.
Definitely. I think that there's some type of peace of mind. I think the biggest hurdle that I would almost say guaranteed. I have researched this for over 5 years. I've talked to many agents before I started, and I could tell you the biggest hurdle is the beginning cost.
Yeah.
And just like what you said, you start a business, you're going to have the initial capital investment.
Yeah.
And what you're really doing is I consider that initial capital as a bridge to my wealth.
There you
Is
go.
like this $28,000 that I am quote unquote spending, losing, whatever you want to call it. There's a benefit to it. It's a guaranteed benefit that happens
Yeah.
through every scenario. I'm going to need, if I get old, I'm going to need long-term care. If I get old, I'm probably going to need some surgery that's going to need benefit, that part. And then also the store of capital and asset protection that comes with all of it. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
I think it's pretty powerful for you and your audience who is in the real estate game. Okay.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
just think about this. Interest rate, Nelson said, interest rates are going to go up and interest rates are going to go down. The one constant is you are going to finance everything. But you think about it, like what's prime interest rate out there right now, 7.5-ish, somewhere as we record this in early 2025. You get to borrow money guaranteed for the rest of your life at 4%.
Yeah.
Is that not like an advantage to you in the real estate market?
It's I put as much as I can into it.
I mean, you're going out and you're raising capital and you got to pay
Yeah.
people what, 3 times that?
9% minimum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So you have this opportunity to go use the insurance company's money while your money grows in a tax shelter, and you get to go do what the banks do, which is use the insurance company's money to go build wealth. And it's not a zero sum game, right? It's more than that. It's an and asset. Most people are thinking of money like, hey, it's either in my pocket or it's in the investment. They look at it and they go, hey, well, my high yield savings account right now is paying me 5%. So I'm just gonna huddle it there. Man, that's gonna, if I want to buy this real estate, I'm not gonna get the 5%. So when people challenge this notion of cash, if that money was if you had 100 grand earning 5% in a high yield savings account, and you took the money out to go buy something, you gave up earning 5%. It has a cost. Okay. And you got Dave and Susie, the financial entertainers, they want to browbeat you and their audience that cash has no cost. And I'm just telling you, I just proved it right there. It has a cost to use it. You give up the ability to earn interest. What is amazing in the policy is that I get money put into a tax shelter, just like every Fortune 500 company does through something called corporate owned life insurance, COLI. And every major bank in America uses something called BOLI, bank owned life insurance. They're all doing the same thing you and I are doing. Okay. We put money into this policy. It's in a tax shelter now. It's growing for me tax free. And I get to use the insurance company's money, leveraging that capital to go build wealth, to create cash flow, because that's the real name of the game, right? That's what you're doing every day. How do I go create more cash flow so I can do what I want to do when I want to do it?
Literally, the last minute of you talking there could be created into 5 hours of conversation. I'm like, I could literally go into 5 things right now that could go an hour in. So let's just take a step back real quick.
Please.
I think the biggest thing, because what we're comparing this cash flow to this is really, we're putting all of our cash flow into this excess cash flow. So if you have $500 a month of cash flow, you would have a smaller policy. Would you have $5,000 a month? You're going to have a 60,000, something like that. So
Sure.
in the past, what I would do is put my money into a 401k. And let's talk about, it's not that the 401k is not the investment. It's the holding company. Like we'll say it's the holding company. And now we're talking about something that a lot of people talk against, which is whole life policies. We're putting our money into this other holding company, which is a whole life policy. So it's very easy to okay, so what is the benefit of a 401k? And there's not a lot. The only benefit is I'm going to pay taxes later. That's all it is. And I'm losing control of my capital to keep me at my 9-to-5 job. 100%.
Awesome.
It 100% keeps you at your 9-to-5. I am creating my own personal golden handcuffs. And you could say, oh, there's ways to unravel it. Do I really want to figure out how to unravel it? Or is it just something that I need to, just get past? This 401k thing is a replacement for the pension, which the pension, it's whatever. We won't go into that area. But so our money is flowing into this 401k to lock it into money jail to keep us at our 9-to-5 job, which we may or may not love to go to today. And we have now, certain jobs, like as a government job, is like a very quote unquote secure job. I think we're seeing the politics right now on how it's becoming unsecured kind of positioning of a job. You think you don't have to, you have all these benefits and all this stuff that comes with it. And now they're questioning, are they benefits or is it now it's becoming an unsecure position to be in? So now we're like, okay, well, how many of those people tied up their money into quote unquote pensions and also 401ks? And when they leave, you're getting hit on the head with a hammer if you need that money. You're losing your revenue, your household revenue takes a dive. You have to pull your money out of your 401k to survive. And with the 401k, you're getting a 10% penalty and also income. You're taxing yourself at a super high income because you're pulling all of it out at the same time. So at the end of the year, you're left with a gigantic bill. And I could tell you, I know numerous people with this experience, and it is literally the worst time to do it. And it's the time you need it the most. And I think that's the difference. So we're flowing all of our money into a policy that benefits us on all these areas of our life and gives us the flexibility to say, I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant, but when I was in real estate, I left my I am still in real estate. When I left my W-2, I left my W-2 job twice. First time I left with zero capital. The second time I left it with $100,000 of capital. So the first time I left, I was trying to convince somebody to buy this mobile home park. This is before I bought my first mobile home park. And I thought to myself, if I had the capital, I would buy that mobile home park. And I could have probably got seller financed. I would have already locked it down. It was worth $400,000 at the time, and it was before prices got out of control. That easily is worth $1 million. That park that I was trying to, and I called everybody I knew with money, and I always thought to myself, if I had the money, I'd buy it. And the way I think the wealthy think is, how do I keep a liquid position to buy the assets that I want to buy? And if I'm putting it into a 401k, I believe there's a separate master that I'm serving two masters. I'm trying to become financially independent, and I'm putting my money into something to locking it up to keep me not financially independent, in my opinion. So
I love that.
Go ahead. I might have something that spurred an idea, but
no, you're what you're doing is you're speaking to that concept of control. So let me ask you 3 questions. And these are the 3 questions Jim asked me the first time we talked. He said, do you think taxes are going up or down in the future?
They're most likely going up. Well, as long it could go down, but that's a pipe dream. That's a pipe dream.
Yeah. It's just a math problem, right? And David Walker outlines this in his book, Come Back America. David Walker was the former comptroller of the United States during Clinton and Bush. And he just like, hey, listen, the more money we borrow, the more interest we got to pay. The only way to pay the interest is collected through taxes. So it's just they're going up. Okay. They can move the deck chairs around.
For the middle class is what I would say. They're going up for the middle class.
That's right. Okay. So are the dollars in your pocket worth more today or in the future?
They're worth more today.
That's right. And would you rather pay tax on the seed or the harvest, the little number or the big number?
The seed, for sure.
So the way that you answered that violates putting any money into a qualified plan. And the qualified plan has been billed as the 8th wonder of the world. You can join our free community, and you can go in there on CreateTailwind and watch. We have a course called It's Just Math. And it was built by this engineer who just walks through this exact math. All right. The 401k is not the eighth wonder of the world. Hey, it's a great thing. It's a great tool for other people because everyone else you're going to put up all the money, take all the risk, and you're going to wind up with, I don't know, a third to 50% of the gain over 30, 40 years. Well, we could take that money and just ask. Everyone needs to always ask the question, whether you're evaluating the 401k, IBC, a real estate deal, just always ask the question, compared to what, right? Like, do yourself that honor and just stress test those things. Like, hey, Glenn and I are looking at this real estate deal. Is it good or bad? Well, what else is out there? What other place? Where else could we get the money? Hey, it's going to cost us 9% for the money here. What strings does that come with, right? What collateral do I have to put up? Well, what if I compared that to this opportunity over here? Blah, 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 right? Like, do yourself that. I love Robert Kiyosaki. He says, in his first real estate investing course, do you know what his homework was from his first course like 50 years ago?
It's been a long time since I read it.
Yeah. He had to go evaluate 100 deals. And I've never forgotten that. Like, because that's really the compared to what is, hey, that first deal might look like a good deal, but you're looking at it in a vacuum. So stress test those things like, hey, I'm going to put money into a CD. I'm going to put $1 million a year into a CD. Hey, that looks great. They're going to pay me 4.5% for 60 months. I'm going to lock that money up. Great. Compared to what? Right? They just ask those questions. And I think everyone would do themselves a great honor to just ask that question all the time.
Definitely. And I think the more liquidity you have in your life, obviously the more opportunities you can take. And even in my own scenario, we're talking about, 2 cars that have car payments right now. I have liquidity towards real estate, but I could take my excess capital to pay off these cars and open up an investment that would be paying me about 20 to 24% of interest, because that's where I'm at right now, so it's one of those things that we all have open, leaks in our system.
Sure.
And we are, if it's not current debt, it's future goals. So if you're not able to buy like the big building down the street, that might be a financial leak. You didn't structure yourself to buy that big building. So how do you figure that out? And I would say, you might get partners, but I would also say that it might be stop putting my money in money jail, or, putting myself into positions that my cash flow is tied up into other areas. And I think that's the main thing.
Yeah. I think too, I love Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. He and Ben Hardy, Dan wrote the original version of Who Not How. And then Dr. Ben Hardy, they rewrote it again here in the last couple of years and expanded the original one. But it's Who Not How, right? Like my 15-year-old is not a normal kid in that he has no interest in sitting in institutional school jail for 5 days a week for 7 hours a day. And so he's been given the latitude to explore entrepreneurial things. And he's done a couple real estate deals with me. He owns a little chunk of a fence business with me.
Love that.
I was busting his chops recently because he really didn't care about the little school that he was doing. And he kind of stopped me in my tracks because I had bought, a lot of your listeners will know who Pace Morby is. And I'd bought a Pace Morby investing course that someone else was going to do, and I was going to finance the deals, and then that guy didn't do it. And so I got the login and password for my son. And, here I'm busting his chops about, not caring about his math class. And he comes to me, he's like, hey, Papa, I'm looking at these deals. And he just starts going, Glenn, we're sitting on a couch and he just blah, 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 blah about these real estate deals. And what does this mean? And that mean, and ROI and ROR and PITI, like, all these things. And I was like, okay, I'd rather this stuff and take a crack at something. And does the kid have money? He's got a little bit. He's got a few grand. He knows
that's really good.
Yeah, he knows that he's going to have an opportunity to buy a car here in the next, we'll call it 6 to 12 months when he turns 16. And he knows that he's going to have cash flow. So his brain is on fire right now. And the one thing that I've told him is it does not matter if you have the money or not. You bring a great plan with a deal that you have thought through. You can bring it to me. You can bring it to Jim. You can bring it to a host of other people in my community. And you know what? You should present that to them, and you should raise the capital, and you have no money in the deal. And you can serve other people with that. It'd be a win-win-win, right? If you can help someone solve a problem and you do that, great, Glenn. I mean, we've got clients that invest with you, and I've only heard great things. And you and I've talked enough to know that I know you got your act together and that you're in it to win it. And, and so you're providing a service for people. And I think that that's one thing. Earl Nightingale talks about this in his recording called The Strangest Secret. And I think so many people, they want to get paid and then they provide a service. Well, the payment, the money that you earn is the reward for providing a great service. And Bob Berg outlines this in his book called The Go-Giver. He's got 5 laws of stratospheric success. And the number one is the law of value. Provide more in value than you ever take in payment. And I think all too often people's heart is not in the right mindset. You and I see this in the real estate investing space all the time, right? People just want to take. Instead of, hey, Glenn, what problem can I help you solve? And the one thing that I know that I've been super blessed, to be attracted to Nelson and then him introduced me to Jim is that is where our intentions are. Is, hey, I'll help you solve that problem. Hey, you need a meeting today with our clients? Hey, Glenn, you can speak to this firsthand. I've never asked you for money to jump on a phone call. None of our service stuff, like any of that. Are we perfect? No, but by golly, we're in a pursuit of that to do it the right way and provide a valuable service and help people solve problems. So I think no matter what industry we're in, if we can wade through the noise and recognize the noise for what it is, and then be in a pursuit of signal, so then we know who to partner with and align our values with, so that we can do great things in this earth.
Awesome. So, Nick, appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can go to CreateTailwind.com. You can click the contact me button. Any of your listeners, you have a no hassle guarantee from us. But if anybody goes on the contact thing, schedules a 20-minute call with me. I can answer your questions, anything. I'll send you a free copy of Nelson Nash's book or Jim's book, whichever one you want, Make Bank Without the Bank. Or you can download our free app. You can just go to your app store, type in CreateTailwind, all one word, and you can download our community for free. You can go in there. You can watch. If you're like, what the heck is IBC? Hey, guess what? We have a course called What is IBC? And you'll watch that. And at the end of it, you'll know whether or not you want to keep learning. Again, it's all free. We love that. But that's where you'll find us.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Glenn. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Journey podcast. Please rate, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with somebody you think would enjoy listening.